So, if you click on this video, maybe you want to learn something about how you can use the advanced primitives within CATIA Imagine and Shape Workbench. So, most of you are familiar with the basic one, the sphere, the cylinder, the box, the pyramid, and the torus. But we have another option, so we have the possibility over here, it's called Parametric Primitive. If you don't have that, you can either grab this tool palette, so the tool palette is called Creation. If you don't have that enabled, you can right click somewhere on the toolbar, and we're gonna see over here we have the Creation. So for example, if I would have this closed and I don't have access to that, I can enable it like this with the Creation. So the tool palette consists of multiple elements. So we have the first one, is called the rectangle primitive. That will allow us to create a rectangle. So we can modify the dimension over here like this. We can slightly adjust it, or if you want a numeric value, we're going to click on that on the addition, and for example I want a length of 30. Also we have done let's say the tips and tricks over here. So I'll move the styling surface so we can see that. So control modification for all directions, and Alt will enable us to select cut mode. So if I will hold down control, I will be able to scale it proportionally on both elements, both sides in this case. So we also have the circle primitive. We also have a polygon. There's the possibility for a polygon to define the number of faces. For example, a polygon with 3 will be like this. We'll have the shape of a triangle, number of sides, there will be 3. Also, you're going to have some edges at the middle, but we can have that increase with the side slider on the right. We also have a ring primitive. So the ring primitive, all the first elements don't have any depth, so they are mostly planar primitives. For this, again, we have the number of sections. We can go up to 32 with this one, and after that we're gonna have the, let's say, the same as the default. So we're gonna have the sphere primitive that will have a geometry looking like this with so many sections. So I'm gonna keep that to 4. So we're gonna maintain the same shape. After that, we're gonna have the cylinder. Also for a cylinder, we can have some sectioning directly within the starting model, but as you already know, within Imagine and Shape, it's quite difficult to work with a lot of let's say faces. So keep it to a minimum and only add features if you really need those to define a certain shape. We have the box that is very similar to the other one, but we can directly increase the number of cuts. So it will be the same just as I would create a box, and after that I would come with face cutting and add additional faces for that. After that, we're gonna have the pyramid. It will be similar to the other pyramid, but again we can modify the number of sides. So this is the main advantage. We can create some interesting geometrical shapes starting with this. So we can have a pyramid with up to 16 sides. After that, we're gonna have the torus. The torus is also quite similar to that one, but we're gonna see here, we're gonna have this, it's called opening angle. So as you can see, for the pyramid, for the cube, we only had this conical mode, that we're gonna talk about that also within this video. But for the torus primitive, we have the possibility to define an opening angle. So opening angle will allow us to maybe only create this at a certain angle. So if you want a certain value, we can do that, or we can go to addition and input it. Maybe I want half a torus, so I can do that with the angle. We're gonna have the 2 primitive. So 2 primitive, it's similar to a cylinder, but we have the cutout in the middle. And again, for this we're gonna have that opening, which is quite useful in some cases when you wanna start with a shape like this that you can later on modify. And the final will be the prism primitive. So this will be the prism. And again, we can increase the number of sides. And for this one, we're gonna have also the opening angle, but keep in mind that the opening angle will only work with additional geometry. So these are the primitive. Now let me take a look at the following buttons. So we're gonna have the transformation direction. For example, if I'm gonna start with a box, by default it's set like this, so it will be transformation in one direction. So this associates the dimension according to one direction, mainly the one that is being let's say highlighted by the mouse. We can snap to that and we can then adjust it, so I can easily have my my box transform like this. Or we can activate the transformation in 3 direction, and then we're gonna have the possibility again to maintain the same value for all. So they will be linked. If we're gonna modify one, they will all gonna be modified to that change. After that, we're gonna have the sharp to smooth. So this is the same as in the standard tool palette when you modify something in Imagine and Shape. For example, in this case for a cube, if I'm gonna go sharp to smooth, we're gonna have a sphere, and if I'm gonna swap back to sharp from smooth, we're gonna go back to a cube. After that, the following button will be regarding the positioning of the element. So we have positioning in center, and as you can see, my cube is positioned within the axis reference. But if I will go like this, with one click it will be position on bottom, so now it will be on the bottom of my reference, and with another click it will swap to the other side, so it will be on the top. So currently this should be my view orientation. We're gonna see it at the bottom, so you're gonna have the z-axis going at the top. Again, I can have that swapped for the positioning to go back to the center. Also, we have this initial angle. This initial angle will revert the initial angle of the primitive, so it will change regarding, let's say, your orientation. So for example, now if I have my camera set like this, I have the z-axis position like this, I'm gonna go on initial angle. I'm gonna see that my cube will be rotated like this. Again, if I'm gonna have that deselected, and I will reposition my camera, again I will go for the initial angle. I'm gonna have the camera again selected. So this next option represents the cutting mode. So this is basically the number of cuts on this side. So this will define that, let's say, the number of section that we're gonna add. So we can add those to that, to all the faces. And if you're gonna see, if I'm gonna click out of that, it will no longer be active. And now I'm gonna have the following one, which is the conical mode. This will enable me to change the conical ratio of the primitive. So in this case, I can do this with a box, and this should work with multiple primitives. So it will work with a box. It will also work with a cylinder. So So let's take a look at that. Advanced primitives, we're gonna go for a cylinder. Again, we are in the sectioning area, and if I'm gonna, for the sectioning area, I forgot to mention this, if I'm gonna hold Alt, we're gonna see exactly where are we gonna do the section cut. So for example, I can only specify a single face like this, not the whole element. So keep that in mind. With Alt you can do that. So we can see over here within this pin with information that I can also pin it over there. Control will do the modification on all direction. Alt will select the cut mode. And for the one that we talked earlier about conical mode, this also works for a cylinder, and as you can imagine, it will influence the shape of the cone like this. The next primitive that can be influenced like this, so we had the cylinder, we had the box, and it can also work with the tube primitive, since and also the prism primitive. So only these four will be influenced by the conical mode. After that, we're gonna have so the opening angle we already discussed. We're gonna have the edition. So this is the same edition as the other one, but we're gonna be able to input much more, let's say, information regarding that. So for the cylinder, can specify the radius, for example 50, length along axis, maybe I want it to be 100, number of sections is currently set to 4, but we can increase the number of cuts either on the axis, so for example like this will be on the axis of the cylinder, and we're gonna have the number of cuts on the sides. So if I will go by 2 by 2, I'm gonna have a cylinder with this topological shape. We're gonna have the conical ratio. If you're gonna keep it 100, it won't have that conical shape. For example, up to 50, this will be 50. So we have the initial radius over here, and this will be the ratio up to 50%. And we're gonna have the opening angle of this. So if I'm gonna go up to 180 or 170, we can quickly define a shape like this. And the last one, it's the mesh view. So if you haven't checked my last video, I highly recommend regarding this mesh view and a real projection based model. This is something that a lot of people that are getting started with Imagine and Shape are struggling, because the settings are different than maybe on the videos that you're trying to learn after, or maybe even in I don't know, classes, if you follow some CATIA classes. And we also have this one. So the last one is a selection. So the selection enables us to define where exactly do we want to position our primitive, because a lot of people are working with Imagine and Shape. They are not really fond of this module because they consider it to be quite freeform, and you cannot work while being constrained to certain dimensions and places for the elements. But with the selection, you can do some of those. For example, if I'm going to go on selection, I have the possibility to select a different plane. Like I selected the Z and X plane, but I can go on a different plane, and we're gonna see that our direction for the cylinder will be changed. Also, you can use other elements like points and line or different other planes. So for example, if I'm gonna create a point by typing in the bottom right corner C after that point, we're gonna have the tool to create a point, but to do that I'm gonna have to click space to edit, to quit the editing of that primitive. Also keep in mind that once an advanced primitive has been defined, you can no longer input that. So for this, if I'm going to go to edit, I'm going to go to the standard tool palette. So I no longer have access to all that information. But now if I'm going to create a new point, so I have the possibility to add some coordinates for this point. So I'm going to go on the z-axis with 50. So this will be my new point. I can also create a line. If I'm going to go like this with line, or if it's easier for you, you have the possibility to find them directly over here within the wireframe section. So you're going to have the line. So we have the possibility to go from a point to point. So maybe I'm going to define another point at 100, and the other point will be at 100 on Y. So it will be over here. So you're going to have again 100 on Z. And now I have a line over there. Also keep in mind that you can also work with planes. So if I'm going to define a plane at maybe 150 over here, now if I'm going to go back to generate a parametric primitive, I have the possibility to maybe, let's say, define a pyramid, and I will go over here to the selection, and I can either select a point, and we're going to see that our pyramid will be aligned to that point. And again, we're going to have this position on center, position on the bottom, position at the top. So we see that the top of the pyramid vertex will be over here. If we're going to go again, this will be the center of our pyramid, and this will be the bottom for the shape. But we can also go for a line, and if you're going to have a line selected, our pyramid will be aligned like this. So that is our line that had 50 millimeters, and we see that our pyramid has 47 millimeters height. So I can have that change to the same value, and now we see exactly how it's centered, or if it would have been larger. So not the radius, the length along the axis. So this direction, I will set it to 100. Again, I have the possibility this will be the center since it's 50 millimeters, or we can go at the bottom, and again at the top, at the center. And the last one will be selection. So you can select a plane, and you're gonna use that as a reference. So depending on your project, I highly recommend that maybe you're starting something in an assembly, you're gonna define some reference parts, and over there you're gonna have some points. And for some components, you're gonna model them either in part design or generative shape design, which are more classical. And only for freeform elements, you're gonna dive into Imagine and Shape. And by using this feature, you can have those constraints, so that you know that you are working with the intended, let's say, dimension of those primitives. Okay, so I hope you find this video useful. I decided to create this video since the video that I created yesterday regarding some important user settings within the workbench for Imagine and Shape had 15 views, and also one of my viewers asked me to make more video regarding this. So if you are also finding my content useful for 3D modeling, because the channel is called 3D comparison, because I'm gonna start comparing various software. So over here within this latest post, we see that I ask what is your favorite CAD software, and the vast majority voted for CATIA. So mostly all of my videos now are focused on CATIA. Some of them are on SolidWorks. I don't have any on Inventor, but yet some of my subscribers like working Inventor. So we only have 9 votes. Hopefully this will change, and a lot of let's say people interested in 3D design and computer design will start following this channel. Okay, so I hope you find this useful. I see it's already 20-minute video long, so I'm gonna stop here. So thanks for watching. I hope that this was an interesting video for you, and you managed to understood some aspects of creating advanced primitives in CATIA V5, Imagine and Shape.